Hi, folks. How we doing? Are we? Yes, we are. Let me get the music going. I freaking love the Johto Legends album by Braxton Burks. I'll shout him out again. I'm so excited to be here with you tonight. I haven't done a ranking stream in a while. Hi, Shell. Thanks for being here. Haven't done a ranking stream in a while. All last week I was just all excited about starting Kingdom Hearts, but for my Pokemon people, I told you not to fret or frown. We're always going to have Pokemon content around, at least generally. So we're back with the 151 greatest Pokemon of all time. What does greatest mean, you might ask? Well, I explain it in previous episodes. Those are up on YouTube. But I will give us a little recap of the previous episode. We went from 89 to 80 last time. And give you a little recap, at number 89 we have Deoxys. At number 88 we have Caesar. At number 87 we have Rhydon, I think underappreciated. At number 86 we have Aerodactyl. At number 85 we have Totodile. At 84 we have Cyndaquil. At 83, we have Zubat, much like Geodude, a very an early Pokemon, a legendary early Pokemon, I'll say. 82, we have Butterfree, iconic. At 81, we have Ninetales, and finally at 80, sharing the 80th slot, we have Regirock, Regice, and Registeel. So, let's just get right into number 79. I'm not going to waste any time. Hey, what's up, Mom? Yes, it's so good. So good. Specifically the Johto stuff. You know I'm a Johto boy. Happy Monday to you, Lock Test. Thank you. Alright. So let's get in. Number 79. Okay, once we get there, I'll have to listen for that. At number 79, we have Ditto! Ditto is such a kind of like an unlikely Pokemon to be on this list, but I will outline for you just why Ditto deserves a spot. It is an iconic gimmick Pokemon. We talked about this a little bit with Wobbuffet earlier on in our list, how it has an iconic gimmick, but Ditto probably more so. It can transform into any Pokemon. There you have it. That's super simple. Really, really cool. And it was one of those things where it's not useful really at all, like in Generation 1, but it's just kind of there, and it's just kind of a mystery, and we'll kind of get to that. So, only move it can use is Transform. It can transform into any Pokemon. Ditto's very interesting for that. Now, it is featured in the original Pokemon Snap, where it will transform into other Pokemon, and you have to get it to transform out so you can take a picture of the Ditto. Really like that. Now, if we go into... I'm going to go into the TCG here first. We have this beautiful little CGI 90s Ditto here. This was in the Fossil set. Got its own holo. It got a couple Wizards of the Coast holos, because we also see here the Koga's Ditto, a personal favorite of mine. There's not that much holo on it, but I really like this. I think it's very charming, and I thought of any gym leader to have a Ditto, it would be Koga. Very tricky for the tricky ninja man. Let's see. Oop, not that. A couple things. It was an iconic theory Pokemon. I talked about how the early CGI cards are very charming, Shell. Like we showed the Ditto, the Ghastly, like some of those early ones. I specifically love the Magneton holo. That's one of my favorite cards ever from base set. Anyway, it's an iconic like theory Pokemon because it's pretty mysterious. People don't really know much about it, but one of my favorite Pokemon theories that I've seen online is that Ditto is actually like a failed clone of Mew, which is why you can find it in the Pokemon Mansion in Generation 1. As we know, the mansion is where they were trying to clone Mew, and that's where Mewtwo was born. And people think that Ditto is a failed Mew clone. It has that same pink color. And Mew is the only other Pokemon that can learn Transform. So that's how people kind of connect it there. It's kind of this amorphous blob of a thing, maybe like a research specimen that didn't quite take all the way. So people's imaginations have kind of run wild with Ditto. And I think that's really, really cool and gives it that great kind of playground theory vibe to it, which is great. So, other thing we can mention is it is a breeding champion. It is the breeding Pokemon, because specifically in those earlier games, Gen 2 and Gen 3, I'm thinking Gen 2 specifically, where they introduced the concept of eggs and breeding, you can catch that Ditto pretty early right outside of, Goldenrod City, and you can put a Ditto with any Pokemon right there in the daycare, and you can get an egg for any Pokemon that you want. And that makes Ditto extremely versatile. So Ditto is never going to be good in battle, but Ditto is an extremely useful Pokemon around the franchise. Ditto, because you're not really going to run into many NPCs at all that use one. I think there's a Ditto user in like the Team Rocket hideout, I think. The Masuda method for shinies. Shall remind the audience, and definitely not me, what the Masuda method is. I have heard that before, in terms of shiny hunting. What else? But yeah, you're not really going to see Ditto a lot in battle on NPC teams, but Ditto, it's a glue Pokemon. It's a lore Pokemon. I find it very cool for that reason. Now, I say featured here in the Detective Pikachu film, and I'm going to go ahead and give a spoiler warning here. I will discuss spoilers for anything Pokemon in these videos, so just you're warned now. Let's see. Oh! If you have one from a region that is your own, you have a higher chance at getting a shiny from the egg. Oh, interesting. You think. Okay. Well, Shell, you definitely know more than me. I'm not much of a shiny hunter myself. But back to Detective Pikachu. Ditto has a great, and I mean great, feature in Detective Pikachu. Because in the movie, there is this like CEO character, and he has a security guard with him. The security guard is always just wearing sunglasses and always mean mugging the main character. And you see this henchman kind of throughout the movie. But then at the very end, there's kind of like a big climactic fight, and the human characters are trying to do something. But this bodyguard steps in the way. But then his sunglasses get knocked off, and he just has those beady little Ditto eyes. It's kind of creepy. But you realize that bodyguard has been a Ditto the whole time, and Ditto has just transformed into a human, which is so freaking cool. I loved that reveal in Detective Pikachu. That movie it's an interesting movie. It's not really what people wanted, but I thought they really utilize some cool stuff in that movie. I'm thinking like the Mr. Mime interrogation scene, the Ditto eyes, the stuff with Mewtwo is cool. Like, that movie is underrated for what it did, I think. I love that moment in that movie. And that kind of takes us to the iconic Ditto face. I pulled up this card as a example of it. As you can see, the other Nummels have regular eyes, but the one there on the right has the beady Ditto eyes. And that's kind of been a staple of Ditto. That Ditto can transform into any Pokemon, but it has those beady little Ditto eyes. And it's funny because that's not actually what it was supposed to be. because there's an anime episode where they find a Ditto that can't transform its eyes. It can transform everything else, but it can't transform its eyes. But then that kind of became like what Ditto itself was known for, even though in that anime episode it's supposed to be like wrong. So that's very interesting, but you have the iconic Ditto face leading into that iconic moment in Detective Pikachu. So you put all those things together, and Ditto is just really, really interesting. Kind of a hard one to place, but a true OG and a really interesting Pokemon. So at number 79, we have Ditto. Let's move right along. Happy Monday, by the way, to everyone watching. If you're watching on a different day, happy day, whatever it is. And let's move along. Number 78, we have Clefairy. This one, Clefairy was a pretty tough one to place for me. The very first thing I have on its resume is Clefairy got mascot consideration. Back in the day, when they were really deciding on what would be the key Pokemon to market, what could market to everybody, and they finally settled on Pikachu, and that was a very, very apt choice. They considered Clefairy to be that Pokemon. I don't know if maybe they thought the pink made it too girly or whatever. I don't know why they really went away from Clefairy, but Clefairy was a very, very, very key Pokemon to the creators, and they thought it could be the face of the franchise. I mean, it is very cute. You can't deny that. But, talk about its great lore. And I believe Clefairy is featured in the manga. Because in those early days it was getting that mascot consideration. I think Red in the manga has a Clefairy. It has really good lore. Clefairy comes from outer space. That is like part of its lore. It evolves with the Moonstone. There's that really great episode of Mount Moon where they all use Metronome, and everything explodes. Metronome, I don't have it listed on Clefairy's resume here, but Metronome was a signature move of Clefairy at the time of its introduction in Gen 1, I think. There's a possibility that maybe, I don't know, maybe like Mew gets it or Jigglypuff. I don't know. Clefairy was very much known for it. And I talked about a little bit about Mount Moon, its signature area in Generation 1. That's kind of a more anime specific, but they do kind of support that more in Generation 2 when you head over to Mount Moon in the post-game of the Johto games, and you get to see kind of like Clefairy dancing around at night. Mount Moon is Clefairy's area, even though you can find other Pokemon and stuff there as well. Yes, talk about that iconic anime episode in Mount Moon using the metronome, that guy named Seymour. The only Pokemon who can use the metronome. Forgive me, wow, that is deep. That is deep back there. Violet City. So good. I have it here in the comments. Johto Legends by Braxton Burks. Everybody listen to this album. It's so good. I've played this and the Kanto Reorchestrated pretty exclusively on these ranking streams, so I highly recommend you all listen to them. What else we got here? We have the it was a member of Gym Leader Whitney's team, and Gym Leader Whitney's team is iconic for the Miltank more specifically, but hold on, give me 1 second, folks. Alright, I think we're good now. It was iconic, more iconic for the Miltank, but Clefairy is the lead Pokemon, and if it hits you with the wrong metronome, that can really set you up poorly for Miltank. And Clefairy kind of is riding the coattails of Miltank there, but hey, Clefairy's there in Gen 2 and Gen 4. It is featured in Pokemon Snap in kind of a similar way that we talked about Mount Moon-ish, kind of dancing around. It is a Pokeball in Smash Bros. I don't remember exactly what it does. Oh, no, it does metronome. So in Smash Bros, it can do a metronome when you release it from its Pokeball, and it can do kind of like a random move, like a couple random moves, which is super, super cool. But the last couple things here might be the biggest points in Clefairy's favor. It got a holo and base set, which this looks so great. The Sugimori art looks amazing. Gosh, I love the original holofoil. You're gonna hear me say it a bunch. And the Shadowless, man, gorgeous cards. So Clefairy got a base set holo. That's a big, big, big deal. And Clefable will get some holos as well. Of course, Clefairy's evolved form, but Clefairy has a connection to Lily. This is one of the big cards from Journey Together, one of the new sets that's come out recently. It's beautiful. We love it. And Clefairy has kind of been viewed as a signature Pokemon of Lily, outside of like Cosmog and Solgaleo and them. And Lily is one of the most popular human characters in the franchise. So we talk about Clefairy being a potential mascot at the beginning and being connected to Lily kind of much later. And those are two big, big characters to be connected to, Red and Lily. So that's very interesting there. Really, really gorgeous card here. And then finally, Clefairy was one of the Pokemon that gained the Fairy type in Generation 6. And just giving it that little bit of extra consideration, is a nice little sprinkle of love from Game Freak. And, I mean, its name is Clefairy. Obviously, it's going to get the Fairy type. And, what do you know? That made it a lot stronger. So, I love Clefairy. Again, kind of a tough one to place, but I settled on number 78, and I think it's worthy. Number 78, we have Clefairy. Moving along to number 77, we have Mr. Mime. Speaking of Pokemon to gain the Fairy type, Mr. Mime also gained the Fairy type in Generation 6. When it was introduced, it became a Psychic Fairy type. And I love the first thing I have on Mr. Mime's resume. It is the featured Pokemon of Delia Ketchum. And for those that don't know, Delia Ketchum is Ash Ketchum's mother. And Ash finds a Mr. Mime kind of on his way back home, I think, in the anime. And he brings it home, and Mr. Mime decides to stay home with his mom and keep her company. And it's really, really cute. And that's one of the first things that I think of when I think of Mr. Mime. So let's talk about its regional form. Some of the new forms that Mr. Mime gets are notable. We have its regional form here. This is its Galar form. I don't care for it that much. It's an ice type. It's a little unnecessary to me. And then even more specifically, it gains an evolution in Generation 8 as well. This is Mr. Rhyme. And people think that Mr. Mime is creepy. Mr. Rhyme is far more creepy to me. I don't really enjoy this Pokemon, and I know a lot of other people don't. I know it's strong. But Mr. Mime, kind of like what we've talked about with Rhydon and Rhyperior, it does gain this evolution here, but it does remain superior to me, and I think most people. So I think that's a feather in its cap. Iconic design. Again, we talked about how people kind of think it's creepy, but for better or for worse, the design of Mr. Mime is iconic. It is kind of what maybe the first Pokemon people think of when they think of like a humanoid Pokemon. Very, very interesting design. I tend to enjoy it, but I do get it. And a lot of people think like mimes and clowns are creepy anyway, so. Also got a big feature in Detective Pikachu. I talked about this a little bit. With Ditto, but Mr. Mime's feature in Detective Pikachu is great because Justice Smith and Pikachu are just interrogating a Mr. Mime, trying to figure out what he knows. And Mr. Mime, of course, can't talk, so he's trying to act it out for him. And it's just a really great bit. And that's another example of moments in that movie that I think they took a lot of care with to make it interesting and fun. Gym leader Sabrina team member, as well as an Elite Four Lucian team member. He is on Lucian's team in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. I'm almost positive. And then for Sabrina, you only see Mr. Mime in her original Red and Blue teams. Because in Yellow, they just elect to give her Abracadabra Alakazam like she has in the anime, or kind of has in the anime. And in Generations 2 and 4, her squad is... It's Espeon, Alakazam, and... Is it Mr. Mime? Maybe she does have a Mr. Mime. Hold on, please hold. I have to fact check myself. Let's see. So, let's look at Sabrina's teams here. In the original Red, Green, and Blue, she of course has that Mr. Mime like I mentioned. In Gold, Silver, and Crystal, I was incorrect. She does have Mr. Mime in those games as well, so I stand corrected. The only game where she does not is Yellow. So that's cool. Being a mainstay on Sabrina's team is a big deal as well, seeing as Sabrina is one of the most iconic gym leaders and popular gym leaders in the franchise. Also got that Elite Four selection in Gen 4. We have a beautiful little jungle hollow here. Oh yeah, it's a little pixelated, but these classic hollows are just so gorgeous. Love, love, love it. Wow, 40 HP. Look at that thing. 40 HP. But it gets an OG WotC Hollow, which we love to see. A few other things on Mr. Mime. It got a baby form. We talked about its regional form and regional evolution, but it got a baby form in Generation 4 called Mime Jr. And I think this is one of the more successful baby Pokemon designs. I think having like a little kid version of Mr. Mime was a great, great choice. And I actually really like the design here. I think it's really, really cute. And you can really see it evolving into Mr. Mime. And also, this makes Mr. Mime feel more like a Pokemon and not just like a weird guy. Because Mime Jr. is clearly a Pokemon. And it's kind of like that connective tissue for Mr. Mime. So, really singing the praises of Mime Jr. here, but I think it deserves it. I think it's really cute, and I think it does a lot for this line. And then finally, you have an iconic in-game trade in Red, Blue, and Yellow. If you catch, I'm pretty sure it's a Clefairy or an Abra. If you catch a Clefairy or an Abra, you can trade it for a Mr. Mime, which is really, really good and gives you a really big power spike early in the game because you can get it early in the game. And pretty much any decent Psychic type is going to be really good in the Gen 1 game. So Mr. Mime gets that iconic trade there. This is another one of those Pokemon that might not have the exact resume of those below it, but it does have such a huge cultural impact. Most people know who Mr. Mime is. So, number 77, we have Mr. Mime, I think, worthy here. Let's move on to number 76. And at number 76, we have Chansey. I was looking at this earlier, and I'm like, wow, we really have a run of pink Pokemon. So we have Chansey. Chansey is the featured Pokemon of Nurse Joy. Chansey is the, healing Pokemon. We talked about how in Legends Arceus, a Chansey or a Blissey out in the wild will heal you if you're hurt, which is such a great detail. It has that signature move Soft Boiled when it first debuted in Generation 1. So Chansey is really known as the healing Pokemon, kind of like the motherly Pokemon, the nurse Pokemon. And it's a really nice niche for it. And it is not only featured with Nurse Joy in the games, Chansey is featured with Nurse Joy in the anime as well. It's very synonymous with the Pokemon Center. It's featured in Pokemon Snap, which I always love to mention, but one of the big things for Chansey was it was an iconic Safari Zone Pokemon. Back in the day, in the Safari Zone, there were several Pokemon that were much more rare than others. I'm thinking about like Kangaskhan, Pinsir, things like that. And Chansey was one of them. And these Pokemon could flee. They were very hard to catch and they could run away, which made them even more difficult to catch. And that kind of gave them a kind of some mythos about them. They were regular Pokemon that were really, really rare. And I always found Chansey to be really cool for that reason. And yeah, just that group of Pokemon that you could only find in the Safari Zone that were more rare. That's always a fun group for me, and Chansey is one of the main Pokemon in that group. Like Clefairy, also gets a beautiful base set holo. Look at that gorgeous little guy. I know that there's a Pokemon card creator, Chloe, who loves Chansey. And again, like, Chansey's design is very kind of weird and silly. I'm just kind of now noticing that just its head kind of looks like an axolotl a little bit. Love this card. 120 HP. I think this was the bulkiest Pokemon card in the original sets, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see. Also a Smash Bros. Pokeball. Can toss out those eggs to help heal you. And I talked about it at the top, but it is often a mascot for Pokemon hospitality. Synonymous with the Pokemon Center, synonymous with taking care of you, with healing you. And I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but it gains 2 evolutions. In Generation 2, Chansey... Whoa, hello. In Generation 2, Chansey gained the evolution Blissey. This thing's so cute. I think it's a nice little progression of Chansey. It's just kind of Chansey with a few more frills, but it's very cute. I like Blissey. Any Gen 2 Pokemon is a winner in my book. And then in Generation 4, it got a baby Pokemon called Happiny. Very cute. Not one of the more necessary Pokemon. It's kind of interesting because a part of me thinks that they only added Happiny because Cleffa and Igglybuff exist. And they're just like, okay, if you're a big round pink Pokemon, you need a baby form. So we're going to give one to Chansey too. And Cleffa and Igglybuff were introduced in Gen 2. And Happiny did not follow until Gen 4. But, in their defense, they gave Chansey an evolution in Gen 2 as well, like we just mentioned. I talked about it was the original signature move Pokemon, actually, or one of them. Because I think only it and Exeggutor could learn Egg Bomb. But Chansey was the only Pokemon that can learn Soft Boiled. And Soft Boiled was a really interesting healing move, kind of still fitting that healing, nurturing niche. But last thing I wanted to mention, we, of course, have talked about this at length in our Platinum playthrough. I love the team-up sections with Cheryl and with Riley, for example, and Chansey is the Pokemon that Cheryl uses in Eterna Forest, and that is very, very near and dear to my heart, and I think that is a really, really nice NPC feature for Chansey. In games where Chansey is more well-known for being rare, honestly, so it's nice to see it consistently in a playthrough like that. And I love Chansey for that reason. So at number 76, we have Chansey. Let's move along to number 75. Rotom! Speaking of Eterna Forest, wow! That was not on purpose, I promise you. Iconic lore for Rotom. It is a little ghost electric guy that will just haunt your appliances. I think that is such an interesting and fun idea, and one that they expand greatly throughout the franchise. And the main reason Rotom is this high. I talked about it being able to haunt a bunch of stuff. And here we see it gets many forms in its introductory generation. Because we have the regular Rotom form, but then we have the fan, the fridge, the oven, the lawnmower, the washing machine, and of course the Pokedex, which we'll get to. So we have a ton of Rotom forms. We actually use Rotom Freeze in our Arceus playthrough. We had an Alpha Rotom. We called him Samsung. So I talked about how Rotom is known as just this little guy that's going to haunt your appliances and your electronics. It is featured in several games later in the series as being a part of the Pokedex. The Rotom is the Pokedex. In Generation 8, he is a bike. He possesses a bike, and that's what you use in Generation 8. But specifically in Generation 7 is where we see the Rotom Pokedex. And that is really what's giving Rotom such a high slot, is that it is getting heavily, heavily featured as basically a character in the new games. And we see in Pokemon Legends ZA, your Rotom Pokedex helps you jump from building to building. It's super, super cool and a great feature for this Pokemon. Electronics mascot, that's kind of easy. And then the last thing in Rotom's favor that I want to talk about, it was mistaken for a legendary when it was introduced in Generation 4. And that is connected to its iconic, original static encounter. In our Platinum playthrough, we all had a nice, great laugh when I didn't realize it had to be nighttime for Rotom to come out of the TV. But in Eterna Forest, if you go to the old chateau and you go to one of the back rooms, there's a TV that's kind of flickering static. And in that TV, Rotom will come out to battle you. And Rotom will have legendary Pokemon music, which is why it was mistaken for a legendary back in the day, at least by me. And that encounter is great in Diamond and Pearl. It is not until post-game. But in Pokemon Platinum, one of the many things that they fixed, it is you can encounter Rotom after you beat the second gym, which is really, really cool and helps you use it for a playthrough, which you were not able to do originally. And of course, Rotom not being a legendary Pokemon is just a great Pokemon to use for a playthrough. Just a good old regular Pokemon that you want to use. So, love this thing. I've always loved it. Oh yes, Elite Four Crispin team member. It's he uses Rotom Heat because he's the fire guy. He's a cook, so he wants the oven. That makes sense. Love that. Nice little bit of synergy here. Ooh, as we listen to National Park. But really, the iconic static encounter and being featured as the Pokedex of the character is really what gives Rotom this high of a slot. Many, many forms as well. A lot of people have a lot of experiences with different Rotom forms. And I know I always wanted to get all of the different forms back in the day when it was much harder to do so. So, at number 75, we have Rotom. Let's move along. Number 74, we have Absol. Absol is a personal favorite Pokemon of mine. I love this thing. I think its design is so cool. It's a dark type, and it has iconic lore, that being that it is the disaster Pokemon. And people kind of think of Absol canonically as a Pokemon that brings disaster, that brings bad luck. But in reality, Absol is just able to see disasters and appears before they happen. So really, Absol is trying to warn the people of these disasters. It's not the one causing them. It's just obviously going to show up when they're about to happen because it can see them and it wants to warn the people. So Absol is kind of like a misunderstood heroic Pokemon in that way. I love Absol. And again, talking about its design, you can really see here in this key art, it has kind of like a yin and yang thing going on with its like little horn and its little white like hair fluff going down. You can really kind of see that there, which I think is a really, really cool design element. And that little white hair thing gets even more pronounced in its Mega Evolution, which I think is really cool. I love the wings, and you see the yin and yang thing a lot more there. Excuse me. I know some people don't really like this Mega Evolution as much, but it's honestly one of my favorites because Absol is one of my favorite Pokemon, and I think it's really, really cool. Let's see. And that was added in That might have been yeah, that was added originally because I think one of your rivals uses it in X and Y. Rival Serena team member. Haha, I already have it here. That's why I write these things down. Oh yeah, Mega Evolution Special. We see that Mega Evolution in the anime Mega Evolution Special. That's very fun. Yeah, Absol's was definitely one of the key ones they wanted to feature. And I mean, I've seen it in the Legend ZA trailers, so Mega Absol is really one of those key OG Megas. The first thing I didn't even mention, it is the ace Pokemon of Elite Four Sydney in Hoenn in Generation 3 and 6. I love it for that. The one thing about Absol that was tough in Gen 3 was that it was a crazy high attack Pokemon. Like, its attack stat's like 130 or something, which is crazy. But its stab type it's a pure dark type. So dark was its stab type, but dark was special in Gen 3. They had not yet done the physical special split. So that's what made Absol tough. We didn't do it in our Battle Frontier playthrough on the channel, but back in the day, I tried to run Absol on a Battle Frontier team. I think I had Absol, Blaziken, and Latios. So that was really fun. It wasn't that great, just because it couldn't use a stab move, really. I think I was running like Shadow Ball and Iron Tail and Slash, and it was whatever. Aerial Ace, maybe. But I love Absol for that. Featured in new Pokemon Snap. You will encounter Absol in kind of like the last regular area of new Pokemon Snap, which is really, really cool. Featured in Jirachi Wishmaker as well, a featured Pokemon of Go. These are things that I don't know as much about, truthfully, but I do know that they are true. So those are more points in Absol's favor. Oh yes, featured in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon. Another classic thing that I know to be true but can't really give you more specifics on. I played the OG Mystery Dungeon, but I did not finish it, so I don't know too much about it. But point being, Absol gets a lot of features in a lot of different mediums. Anime, spin-off games, movies, TV specials. Not only that, but it gets a Mega Evolution. Absol's kind of featured everywhere. And Absol is kind of like a cool Pokemon mascot for the series at this point. I think if I can justify this spot for it at all, that's going to be the main reason. But I have a couple TCG cards to mention. This is a newer card for Absol. This beautiful Absol Galarian Gallery card from Crown Zenith, one of the best modern sets. This art actually reminds me a little bit of the Great Valley. If any of you have ever watched The Land Before Time, the area behind Absol reminds me of the Great Valley. Land Before Time is a classic animated movie. Love that movie. But then here, this is one of my favorite cards ever. Oh my goodness. I love this Absol. It just looks so proud and true. Oh, I think I have this card graded if I'm not mistaken. I was able to pick up some cool vintage cards before they got absurdly expensive. But I love this Absol card. It's one of my favorite cards ever, and certainly I think the best Absol art in the TCG, so I wanted to shout it out. But again, Absol is, in my opinion, one of the coolest Pokemon that exists, and I would argue, in Game Freak's opinion, one of the coolest Pokemon that exists. So that's why we see it here at number 74. Let's move on to number 73. We have Scyther. Scyther cannot be denied, baby. Scyther is amazing. If you remember, we had Scizor at number 88, I believe, on our last episode. And I think some people do prefer Scizor or Scizor. I say both. Some people do prefer Scizor, and it is an evolution to Scyther. But again, I mentioned there that Scizor is more of a lateral move than a traditional evolution. It's more kind of like a redistribution of the stats. And Scyther and Scizor are both like worthy Pokemon in their own right. You don't have to evolve your Scyther. You don't feel like you have to evolve your Scyther in order to use it. It's strong on its own, especially when it was introduced in Generation 1. And that is another thing that I think is points for it. We talked about Scizor there. It also gained a regional evolution, as we know from our Legends Arceus playthrough. And that is error. Let's see. There we go. Here's Kleavor. As we know from our Legends Arceus playthrough, Scyther gets a regional evolution in those games. This is Kleavor. And so Scyther gains 2 evolutions, but I wouldn't say it remains superior, but it keeps its individuality. So Scyther was able to gain evolutions in generations 2 and 8, but still feel like its own Pokemon, really. It didn't feel like a stepping stone, which I think is really, really cool and one of the reasons why Scyther is so high on our list. Talk about Pokemon that are considered cool. Scyther might be the kind of cool Pokemon, or one of them. And there we have that iconic design. Swords for arms. What more do you need to say? So cool. We talked here a little bit more about the Safari Zone. We talked about that with Chansey. Scyther was another one of those Pokemon. For me, Scyther was kind of like the iconic Safari Zone Pokemon. Talked about Chansey, Kangaskhan, but Scyther, man, Scyther. That's the one that you really wanted to catch. And I will add, I don't have it written here, but Scyther was kind of the Pokemon of the bug catching contest in Generation 2. In National Park, I believe we did it when we played through Crystal. You can do a bug catching contest, and that's kind of like their version of the Safari Zone in that game. And you can catch Pinsir, you can catch a number of different bugs, but Scyther is kind of the main one that you really want to catch. And so Scyther is not only great in the Safari Zone, but great in kind of its spiritual follow-up in the National Park, which I think is interesting. It is featured in Pokemon Snap. It is in that first beach area where it's slicing up the grass. Looks super, super cool. Let's see. Oh, the first thing I have written here. Oh, here at the bottom, remain viable after evolution's added. That's kind of really what I was getting at. The first thing I have listed here is a featured Pokemon of Tracy Sketchit. If you remember in the OG anime, Tracy was the character that replaced Brock in the Orange Islands arc. And no one liked Tracy as much as Brock, come on. But Tracy did have a Scyther, which is super, super sick. So Scyther got a really nice anime feature in the OG anime, which we love to see. But I do want to talk about its TCG representation here for a second. Because we have this iconic card from Jungle, just the regular old Sugimori art with the green background there, the blue-green background. Scyther, I believe this holo was certainly printed in base set 2 as well. I want to say also Legendary Collection. Correct me if I'm wrong, TCG people. But there was one other card that... this was an OG Wizards of the Coast promo card that featured Scyther right here. Look at this WotC promo. And this reminds me of that that moment in the OG Pokemon Snap where Scyther's like cutting up the grass. This background kind of reminds me of Scyther's... Ooh, excuse me. This card reminds me of Scyther's feature in the original Pokemon Snap, and that's why I wanted to shout it out. And it's one of those great original Wizards of the Coast promos. I always love to shout out cool WotC stuff, and that's what we get with Scyther. So Scyther has really, really stood the test of time as a great design, cool Pokemon, popular Pokemon, even with the additions of its evolutions. Oh, one last thing I forgot to mention. It is the ace Pokemon of Gym Leader Bugsy, which was really, really cool at the time because it felt pretty strong for that gym in Generation 2. It also has that cool U-turn strategy in Generation 4. We'll get there. Don't worry, kids. But Scyther is so great. Scyther and Absol, both super cool Pokemon. Edgy in a great way. I love them. So 73, we have Scyther. Let's move along. Number 72. Houndoom, baby. Houndoom. Generation 2 time. Houndoom gets a lot of great moments in regular playthroughs. So we... Oh my gosh, I'm kind of reading this back and I can see so much. It is the ace Pokemon of Elite Four Karen. It is the ace Pokemon of Rocket Executive Archer. In the OG Gen 2, he's not called Archer. He's just like the Rocket Executive, like the main Rocket Executive. But he's the ace Pokemon of that character. He is a team member of Team Galactic Cyrus, if you recall from our Platinum playthrough. And then he's also going to be the Ace of Karen in Generation 4 as well. But then you get this awesome feature at the beginning of Scarlet and Violet as well. Kind of like that opening cutscene where we meet Koraidon or Miraidon and learn of their power. That scene heavily features Houndour and Houndoom. And Houndoom gets a lot of love, which is funny because in its original generation, you could not catch it until the post-game, which was super dumb, as we all know. I talk about its iconic design here. It's just got that great, just kind of like Hellhound, Cerberus-y, cool design. We just fought Cerberus in Kingdom Hearts 1. Just a great design. I think a really nice answer to Arcanine, because Arcanine, you kind of have that big, fluffy, heroic dog, and now you have kind of like the slender, mean dog. Really good design choice there. Does, of course, get a Mega. Not one of my favorite Megas, but still pretty cool. It's Houndoom with more spikes. Houndoom with more spikes. It is pretty cool, though. I do like Mega Houndoom. Game Freak loves to give its cool Pokemon Megas. Yes, I talked a little bit about it here. It had iconic / infamous rarity in its debut generation because you could not catch the Pokemon until the post-game in Kanto in the Johto games. But it's also an iconic third version edition. The edition of Houndoom really is so key to Pokemon Platinum, and it's really it is the edition that sticks out the most to me when it comes to Platinum fixes, because Generation 4 desperately needed a fire type in its Pokedex, and Houndour fit the bill right after Veilstone City there. And when I think of the fixes that Platinum made, fixes that are very famous to Pokemon fans, adding Houndour is the first one that I think of. So that's a nice feather for Houndoom's cap there. Now, let's talk TCG. A lot, and I mean a lot of great stuff in the OG WotC days and the Neo days. This Houndoom card from Neo Revelation is so great. I love those colors in the background, howling at the moon. I've been trying to get my hands on this card for a while. Haven't really been able to find one at the right price for me. But this artwork is absolutely gorgeous. I love it. And we see more cool stuff like it. This is in Neo Discovery. Also very cool. I don't like it as much as the Revelation one. But again, you get that great look of the dark Pokemon in the Generation 2 cards. It gets a nice card in Neo Destiny. It has a holo in 3 out of the 4 Neo sets. So that's super sick. This one's awesome. I love the fire. Man, looking at this again makes me appreciate it even more. Dark Houndoom here, looking very sinister. And then finally, possibly my favorite Houndoom art in the original WotC days, we have the solemn Houndoom resting on the rock from Aquapolis. Again, I've talked a lot about the e-reader sets, really trying to give Pokemon more personality, kind of see them in a different light than you might usually, and I really, really like this artwork for Houndoom. And then finally, we have a nice feature in Shrouded Fable, a newer set, I think came out this year or very recently. Love this Houndoom card. It's pretty expensive in English, but I got it for pretty cheap in Japanese. So that's a tip for y'all. If you just like to collect artwork like me, you can collect them in different languages. I think this Houndoom artwork is super, super cool. It's kind of like he's about to use Beat Up with the rest of his pack there. But I mean, man, we talk about cool Pokemon mascots, man. We had Absol, Scyther, Houndoom right in a row, baby. That is amazing. But yeah, Houndoom has been heavily featured as a playthrough Pokemon throughout Pokemon's history. Very, very popular. Fire Dark type, such a cool typing. So I love this Pokemon, and I think you all do too. So Houndoom comes in at number 72. Man, just a couple more. Let's move on. Number 71, we have Steelix, another great Johto Pokemon. Steelix might be a real fixture in people's minds when they think of Johto. Steelix, of course, its most iconic feature is being the ace Pokemon of Jasmine. Jasmine is my favorite gym leader of all time, and her having the Steelix is such a nice juxtaposition from the very soft-spoken, timid girl that you see, that she has this big, angry, mean Steelix as her ace Pokemon. I always thought that juxtaposition was nice. And Steelix, it was always a tough ace. If that Iron Tail actually hit, it would be very powerful. But it being featured on Jasmine's team, of course, in Generations 2 and 4, I do need to mention, again, a featured boss in New Pokemon Snap. In New Pokemon Snap, they do kind of have, like, boss encounters, and Steelix is one of them, and it's super, super cool where Steelix is kind of, like, burrowing all around you, and you have to catch him as he passes by. Really, really cool. I love Steelix being featured as a boss in that game. It did get a Mega Evolution, which is awesome. This one is kind of ugly, but I think it is still really inspired as we see kind of like the crystals poking out of it. I know people like Lorekeeper Toby have talked a lot about the Crystal Onyx and how that's kind of like the purest form of Onyx, potentially. And this kind of lends credence to that. I'm kind of like repeating his theory a little bit. That the crystals are like erupting from Steelix as it reaches its zenith form, as its Mega Evolution. So we have Mega Steelix. Any Pokemon having a Mega is great for it. It's related to Onix. I mean, Onix is one of the most iconic Pokemon of all time, for it being the first boss Pokemon ever, really. And being connected to Onix is a huge thing. It was one of those OG Metal Coat evolutions. We also have some really nice features in Generation 4. It is a team member of Byron, the 6th gym leader, and also, perhaps infamously, it is on Elite Four Flint's team twice in Diamond and Pearl and, of course, the remakes, BDSP. Flint, of course, being famous for being a Fire-type trainer with only 2 Fire types out of 5 Pokemon. So Steelix kind of gets an infamous distinction there, but one that I think is still really cool. And then I'm kind of getting into TCG territory again. It gets a WotC Holo, which we love to see. This classic Sugimori Neo Genesis Holo. I love this Steelix card. I'm extremely nostalgic for it. Love this Steelix card. It also gets a Shining card in Neo Destiny. And the Neo Destiny Shinies are some of the most iconic cards in the entire Pokemon hobby. So that is a huge feather in Steelix's cap. This one, of course, is really cool, kind of kinetic, dynamic looking. I love it. This illustration rare from the recent set Paradox Rift, I love. You see Steelix really, you really see Steelix engaging with the real world. How if Pokemon were real, you see it on the construction site with all these little guys. You see a Timber and a Girder Pokemon who I do not like as much and will not be on this list. But I love this Steelix card. I think it's so creative and cool, and the kind of illustration rare boom has been great in the modern cards. I've loved it very much. And then finally, we have Jasmine Steelix. This is, of course, from the Versus set that I've talked about a lot. I love the cartoony art style here. This is kind of like the Gym Heroes, Gym Challenge Steelix from the Versus series, Japanese exclusive. And there's one other card that depicts Jasmine's Steelix. No, it's not. It's not a Jasmine card. It might just be a Steelix card. And it is in Cosmic Eclipse. That's it. Yeah, right here. You get another really nice Jasmine and Steelix card. And Jasmine looking real unsure as she's got her big old Steelix behind her. Gosh, I love this card. I think it's so cool. Man, hard to believe this is only $5. Really? That's oh wait, no, those are Chinese. Never mind. Near mint, we're getting a little more expensive, but yeah, these Cosmic Eclipse, these are like some of the original alt arts in Cosmic Eclipse. I'm surprised those are so cheap. But Steelix is so great to me. I guess if I'm being a little bit biased, being connected to Jasmine is huge. Gets that Mega Evolution related to Onix. Gets some really nice NPC features. I think Steelix is very worthy of the number 71 spot here on our list. And finally, to close out today, we're going to go to number 70, and that Pokemon is going to be Darkrai. I was just talking about today, I think I shared the clip today, of me being unsure if our Darkrai quest was working. Someone commented something, so I might need to go in there and see if it works. It would be interesting just to record a little mini video just to show my reaction. But anyway, Darkrai, you have the iconic lore of Darkrai as being a nightmare Pokemon. In that original distribution event, we've talked about those a little bit, like with Shaman, for example. You would have to go to another island to find Darkrai. It had that iconic event where the child is like having nightmares, and you have to go to the other island to find Darkrai. It is connected to Cresselia in that way because they need like the Cresselia wing to heal the kid's eternal nightmare caused by Darkrai. It, of course, is a mythical Pokemon, which we love, and I'm really glad it's a mythical Pokemon because we did not need it to complete the Arceus Pokedex to actually be able to catch Arceus, which is really nice. Now, I was not able to show it on stream, but its Pokemon Legends Arceus encounter is super sick and really iconic. So hopefully I will be able to record a little video of me finding Darkrai, rather. So its encounter in Pokemon Legends Arceus is super cool, as well as its original distribution encounter in Generation 4. So, excuse me. The way that you found it was super cool, super iconic. Also featured in the Rise of Darkrai film. The Rise Darkrai gets its own movie. It is the cover star of the movie, which is super great for it. Talked about Darkrai being the Nightmare Pokemon. That's why it got its iconic signature move, Dark Void, where it could put every Pokemon on the field asleep. And I'm pretty sure that was a big thing for Smeargle in VGC, where Smeargle could learn that move and just destroy everything. So I think they had to ban Dark Void on Smeargle, if I'm not mistaken. I think I saw that somewhere, which is super cute. It is playable in Pokken, which is really, really awesome. Again, I really like... They had some non-conventional picks in Pokken that I wouldn't think that they would pick. They didn't choose all fighting types, you know. Like I talked about how you can fight a Chandelure, which I think is super cool. And Darkrai is kind of another one of those Pokemon I wasn't expecting. But I mean, look at that design. I mean, between Darkrai, Absol, and Scyther, I mean, just the edgy, super scary, cool designs. I mean, that thing is awesome, man. That thing is so cool. Oh, and I don't have it listed here, but I'm fairly certain there is a big anime arc where Ash is fighting a Darkrai. All you anime fans out there, help me out. But I'm pretty sure there's a really, really big anime arc with Ash fighting a Darkrai. But then we have its oh gosh, these two cards that I decided to feature. Man, the Umbreon and Darkrai, baby. I know that there's another version of this art. This is a promo. Hold on, I gotta find the other Darkrai Umbreon. Because I mean, Umbreon is definitely one of people's favorite Pokemon. And of course, we do have this one here, kind of like the OG, just GX from Unified Minds. Oh, Lugia's song. But this Umbreon and Darkrai is amazing. One of my favorite promo cards. And for them to decide to team up Umbreon and Darkrai is really, really great. And they also team up Deoxys and Espeon in this same kind of deal, which another great team-up pairing. Love, love, love this. But then, this is one of the coolest cards. Just look at this. This is one of the coolest modern cards to me. This is the Darkrai V-Star from Crown Zenith, and it is just like there, just in the middle of the lake. It looks so freaking cool. I love, love, love this card. Ooh, it evolves from Darkrai V. I don't really know much about the TCG. I didn't realize that V-Star evolved from regular V. That's interesting. But those two modern artworks for Darkrai are amazing. I mean, there you have it, folks. You put all that together, you have the Nightmare Pokemon himself closing out our ranking for today at number 70. We have Darkrai. Now, I cannot believe that we are this far into the list. We're kind of like at the halfway point. Is that right? No, we're over halfway. We're over halfway now. That's crazy to me. I am so excited to keep going with this. I love kind of rolling it out slowly. It's been super, super fun. But I can't wait to keep going on this with you. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. I'll see you again this week with more Kingdom Hearts 1. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for watching these videos on YouTube, which I really appreciate. I'll always remind you to subscribe if you would like to, please, and to like this video. And with that, I'll see y'all next time. I'll be around, kiddos. New music kicks in. All right. Peace, guys.